Bloomington is at a pivot point. You've all heard me describe pressing needs confronting us several times. I'll begin tonight with a different voice. Mayor Tommy Allison made the following comments in a 1984 memo to City Council that first established the local option income tax. Quote, "No government official wants to raise taxes which are unnecessary, but our first obligation is to provide basic services to our citizens. We must maintain the high quality of our police and fire services. We must maintain our streets, curbs, sidewalks, our equipment inventory, and our city facilities." Close quote. This 1984 income tax of 0.5% was raised another 0.5% 5 years later in a 1989 council action, bringing that basic lit local income tax to 1% some 30 years ago, where it stayed until 2016, when the Local Income Tax Council raised a 0.25% public safety lit to support critical investments in that sector. For 3 decades, together we have provided those essential services, but in order to continue to do so, with several revenue sources declining, with city services and facilities expanding, with pressure on our employees and our expenses increasing, we must have additional revenue to continue the excellence that we have achieved and that our residents expect. In addition, I believe we owe current and future residents a similar obligation to invest in the future, to address challenges we see today and expect tomorrow, in particular, climate and inclusion, to assure we are addressing this changing planet and community responsibly and in ways that allow all our residents to thrive, future and present, and from whatever walk of life. That's what tonight and the next 2 weeks of consideration are about: meeting basic needs and meeting fundamental obligations. Tonight, I'll share briefly where we are in our recent progress together over the past few years. Then we will review that process that has led us to these lit and bond proposals and the next steps. I'll be happy to address questions whenever you see fit, during or thereafter, and look forward to continuing the extensive dialogue in which we have all been engaged in the past weeks and months. So just to set the table, since 2016, together we've made great progress in our city, providing excellent services and improving opportunities for our residents. Through your support of that public safety lit in 2016, we have been able to equip and update our dispatch, police, and fire departments, and today are the only city in the state of Indiana with a nationally accredited police force and a top-ranked fire department with ISO #1, with declining crime rates and an unprecedented 5th year in a row with 0 fire fatalities. By the way, these slides we'll make available tomorrow publicly. Through your support for affordable housing, through the Housing Development Fund and zoning incentives and more, we have been able to expand our investments in affordable housing dramatically, resulting in 1,121 units of affordable housing over the past 6 years. Through your support for the Integrated Tax Increment Finance District and the Redevelopment Commission, we have been able to create the Trades District and advance Hopewell and support many other key local infrastructure investments. Our jobs and wage rates are increasing, and we have seen unprecedented private investment and public infrastructure progress, over $3 billion in recent years. Through your support, our Parks Department, through the years and through the bicentennial, we have been able to earn 2 national gold medals and expand a department the envy of most cities our size, including, of course, our largest new parks project ever, Switchyard Park. Through your support of 3 affiliated entities, we've seen strong growth in their impact and quality. Incremental rate adjustments at our utilities department have accelerated water main replacements, improved the size and quality of our wastewater plants, as well as protected the quality of our water and Lake Monroe. Bloomington Transit has attracted substantial federal support to replace buses, buying 28 new buses over the past 6 years, compared with only 10 in the previous 6. And the Bloomington Housing Authority has dramatically accelerated the upgrades of more than 200 units of public housing, doing in about 5 years what was previously projected to take more than 25 years. And through your support for our solar contract, expanding investments in sustainability, we have begun implementing our first ever climate action plan. Overall, it is through this council's and your predecessors' consistent support for fiscal stewardship through all the years that we've been able to advance our community in these many ways, responsibly and proactively. The most recent investments of Recover Forward are one more example, allowing us during a pandemic and great recession to keep investing in nonprofits, our people, our employers, our basic services, to weather storms and do our job to help people thrive. Today is another step in being those good stewards and meeting those challenges and opportunities. Our fiscal condition at present is good, but not without future revenue. 2 years ago, in January 2020, we previewed critical investments needed and discussed a potential LIT. Then COVID hit. In 2021, we considered a LIT again amid a very challenging pandemic and recession. We dedicated local reserves and then federal money to Recover Forward. The federal support from the American Rescue Plan of last year was absolutely critical to sustain our good efforts. But that was just one-time support, as you know. And finally, during deliberations for the 2022 budget, as a council, you indicated support for more public safety investments and for more regular infrastructure investments, hence our development of the general obligation bonds and the LIT proposals we're discussing this evening. 3 weeks ago, our administration shared a detailed outline of categories and programs for the LIT and the bonds. We specified 4 key areas for LIT investments. First, critical public safety investments, including staffing costs for both sworn and non-sworn personnel and major facility costs that are not covered in the 10-year PS LIT capital plan. Second, investments needed to sustain other essential city services in the face of pressures on workforce costs, increasing operating and supply costs, growing general maintenance and replacement needs, as well as revenue reductions, in particular affecting information technology needs, including cybersecurity. Third, investments to prepare for and mitigate climate change and its effects locally. This includes major local investments in improved transit services, which incidentally should also help leverage significant federal funding, as well as direct investments to implement the ambitious citywide climate action plan. And fourth, we outlined key LIT investments needed to assure Bloomington is a place of diversity, equity, and inclusion, where all can thrive, including significant investments in affordable housing, both ownership and rental, and help for people to access jobs and careers, including in trades, for example, as infrastructure spending in coming years increases. We also establish an economic equity fund to help low-income working residents and ongoing investments to support our vital arts and local food sectors. Regarding the bonds, we committed to bring to you two $5 million bonds for your review, focused on local infrastructure needs, consistent with relevant plans like our comprehensive plan, our transportation plan, including the high-priority bike network, our parks plan, our sustainability and climate action plans. All relevant city departments scrubbed those plans in their own capacities to recommend a wide range of options, which were then prioritized by departments and by ripeness in time, and also evaluated according to their power to leverage additional funding. That very large list was winnowed to two lists presented 3 weeks ago, offering to Council the opportunity to review and reprioritize as desired. All of this reflects our community at a pivot point. How will we come out of the pandemic and the recession? As President Biden has urged, will we build back better? Will we keep up Bloomington's momentum? Now, since sharing that outline and all those details, we have been listening to you directly in a public council work session and through many, many individual conversations. We have heard from organizations and from individual members of the public, including through an online poll active for weeks, still open for those that can go online, with scores of people responding. And truly, since January 2020, countless conversations and communications. It's important also to note these proposals reflect extensive public input incorporated in documents like the Climate Action Plan itself and 3 citywide scientific surveys, for example, reflecting the public's opinion the city should seriously address affordable housing, and our comprehensive plan and transportation plan, both updated through long public processes in the past 5 years. So, specifically since mid-March, in reaction to our proposals, we've heard feedback, including a 1% lit rate rise seems too much. Lower it, if possible. Others strongly support a full 1%. Some wanted even greater investment in basic city services. Some wanted to reduce new investments in transit. Others said it was essential and wanted increases. Some wanted to eliminate or reduce the job support, economic access. Others viewed that as important. Some wanted more, some wanted less in the Economic Equity Fund. Several supported housing support, some especially for home ownership. Some wanted more Climate Action Plan direct investment. Some wanted less. Regarding the bond project, some suggested adjusting priorities. Some expressed interest in knowing what leverage the lit investments offered. Some wanted assurances of transparency in explicitly tracking lit expenditures over time. And I'll report on the lit, the public voted how to allocate among the 4 buckets, the 4 priorities. The public's vote put all 4 within 20 and 30%, adding up to 100. All 4 were within that band of 20 to 30% priority. We took all that feedback in. And before I share tonight revisions to the proposal, I just want to remind you, Council and public, of our local capacity to invest. As we have discussed, our county lit is low now, lowest among our 7 contiguous counties, low statewide. We have not raised the basic lit for 30 years. When you look at our overall tax rate as a city, income and property, we are among the lowest of Indiana's large cities. We also have modest spending levels when we compare ourselves to those cities. Here, the general fund per capita expenditures of 20 cities. And our debt per capita is also very responsible. Here, the per capita debt of the 20 cities of Indiana, not counting Indianapolis, which is an unusual, of course, county-city combination. We have the capacity to support these critical investments. So based on all the input, regarding the two $5 million bonds, we have adjusted the priority list in one way based on majority views in the Public Works General Obligation Bond, moving the High Street project to the top of that list as we present to you. All other projects and priorities are retained, though I will state we are absolutely open to any and all future adjustments of priorities based on the Council's directions. And again, based on feedback, and as always focused on meeting needs regarding the lit, we will advance for your review a proposal based on that March 17 outline of 3 weeks ago, adjusted as follows. We will propose a 0.855 percentage point increase in the lit, lower than the full 1% that some have advocated, but sufficient to meet our community's needs. This incorporates the economic development lit proposal allocated by population. We also have added an increase in essential city services of $500,000 allocated to personnel and to major expenses increases. We have adjusted with an increase in the Climate Action Plan investments of an additional $250,000, and we have adjusted with an increase of $250,000 for the Economic Equity Fund to help address any negative impacts of the lit. Also, based on your feedback, we will create a new fund into which the ED lit revenue will go, from which it will be appropriated annually through the budget process and also through our program budgets, tracking through to each department and program. These proposals will result in a local lit rate of 2.2%, which will put us exactly in the middle of our immediate neighbor counties, with 3 higher and 3 lower. Statewide, it will put us in the second quartile of lit rates. And by the way, it is important to note that the state recently adopted a reduction in the state income tax, planning a 0.33 percentage point reduction over the coming years. That would bring the effective rate we are adding down nearly to 0.5% with that impact. And as to the bonds, our relative position of per capita debt will not budge. We will remain right in the middle of comparable cities. A 0.855 percentage point increase in the lit, as proposed here, is projected to generate approximately $18 million in new annual revenue for the city of Bloomington. Other governmental entities would also receive additional projected annual revenue. Specifically, the county would receive an estimated $11.4 million, Ellettsville, $1.4 million, and the town of Steinsville, about $44,000 annually. These new funds from the bonds and the lit will change our community's trajectory. They will allow us to address critical needs of and meet fundamental obligations to our residents, present and future. As Mayor Allison said 38 years ago, we meet our first obligation of basic services, and we also will advance our community into a much brighter future, more sustainable and more equitable. This proposal will soon be in your hands. I know very well that all 9 of you, like me, love this city and work diligently to advance our future. I also know that the 10 of us may have different assessments of how best precisely to do that. I believe we share a great deal in values and in goals. Indeed, I think we share a great deal in approaches and in priorities. But we are not all of one mind. That's a democracy. I've done my best I've done my best to provide a proposal that reflects the range of thinking on this council and in this community on how best to move forward. It's up to us now to work together to find that common ground, reflecting the facts that none of us will find a final result matching exactly what we might want personally, but also the fact that we can be confident that the solution will be a great step forward for all of Bloomington. I thank you for your attention. I'm happy to respond to questions as I'm able. I also want to thank Controller Underwood and Corporate Counsel Beth Kate, who are here to step in as appropriate or needed. Thank you very much.